Welcome everyone. I hope that you guys are doing wonderful today. Today we are going to be studying Vocabulary 1 provided by Logos College. And we are going to be using English vocabulary and use. We'll be on units 14, Growing Up. So everyone, please open the book, English vocabulary, pre-intermediate and intermediate. We are going on units 14, Growing Up. When we're talking about growing up, we're talking about when you were born all the way until you are right now. Chances are, most likely, everybody is an adult. That means they're 18 and plus. So let's start out with some of these vocabulary. Birth. B-I-R-T-H. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Birth. With the TH sound, we say birth, and the TH we change into an F sound. Birth. See, birth with the F sound right here. Birth. This means when you were born. So that's what birth means. Okay, so for the next one, this is ages and stages in the UK. For this one, it's almost the same for American English. The only slight difference we have is from when you're born all the way until you're 1 year old. For American English, we like to call this infant. So for this is the only difference. For UK, they say baby, but for American English, remember, we call this an infant. Infant with a T sound, infant. Continue the next one, toddler. It's when you are called a toddler, that means when you can walk. So this is a slight difference. When you can walk, we call you a toddler. If you cannot walk and you are crawling, we usually call you an infant or a baby. An infant is when you are born and you cannot crawl. So that means crawl. This means you're on 4 legs. You're on your legs and arm and you are crawling. Or we say you are on 4 legs. So a baby, you cannot crawl. Infant, you can usually crawl. Sometimes it don't necessarily mean that you can crawl. A lot of the times we are talking about before you can walk. So that's what an infant usually means. And then from 3 to 12 years old, we call this a child. And we call this period your childhood. So childhood means you grow up. So that's what childhood means. Childhood just means that you grow up. When you grow up. Continue on with the next one. The next stage, these are called stages. The next stage is a teenager. Teenager is when you're about 13 to 18. So with teenagers, this is usually when you're older, you learn how to dress nice. You learn how to dress so that you are starting to like the opposite sex. So that's what we call a teenager. And for an adult, when you're 18 and plus, we call an adult. But for American English, when we're 18 to 21, we call it young adult. Why do we guys call you a young adult? The reason why we call you a young adult is because for American, this is you cannot drink beer. So that's why we call you a young adult. You cannot drink beer, so we call you a young adult. After you are over 21, you're 21 and plus, that's when we typically call you an adult, because that's when you can drink beer. So for us, we call you a young adult. meaning you cannot drink beer, but we call you an adult. That means when you're 21 and over, and this means you can drink beer anywhere. Before you are 21, you are not allowed to drink beer. So this is a slight difference with the age group. After a young adult, we call it middle age. So around 40 years, we approximately, we say this word, approximately. So this just means made, about, or almost. So it's just like you're guessing about or almost. So when you're about 40 or over 40, we call it middle age. The next stage is 60 or 65. This is when you reach retirement. Retirement is when you don't have to work no more, and the government or usually your company gives you some money. We call it, for Lao people, I guess they call it old money or old people or old money, but we call it retirement. And when you reach about 80, we call you, that is the next stage, old age, or people describe you as an elderly. So elderly means you are old, you're about almost 80 years or over 80 years. So this is the stages when you grow up. You go through a phase when you're born, and when you're born, it means zero. You're born, so we call it, the moment you are born, we call it birth. From birth until 12 months, we call you a baby or an infant. After you learn how to walk, we call you a toddler. That means when you can walk, we call you a toddler. For the next group, from 3 to 12 years old, we call this a childhood. Childhood means you are growing. Teenagers usually means you stop growing. This is, you don't grow taller no more. You just grow, I guess, fatter. You don't grow taller no more. So this is when you stop growing. We call you a teenager. And then after teenager, we call you an adult when you're 18 years. But for American English, we call you a young adult if you cannot drink beer. So when you're 21 and plus, meaning 21 and over, then we call you an adult because adults can drink beer anywhere. And then the next group is 40 years or more. We call this middle age because by this time, most people are married and they have children. After you are married and you have children, that means you are 60 or 65 years old. That means your children is already grown up. They are young adults most of the time. And after you're 60 or 65, you reach 80, we call this an elderly. And by the time you are 80, a lot of the time your children are approximately middle age or they're close to retirement. Okay, so for the next age, for the next lesson, we are talking about age group. For the age group, we have typically three stages. So there are 3 stages when we talk about age group. The first stage, we call it early. After this group, the next age group we call mid, meaning middle, and the next group we call it late. So for the early, we are talking about when you are about, let's take for example your 20s. So when we talk about early, we're talking about the group when you're in your 20s to 30s. So when on this, we always add an S. Remember, 20s to 30s. So when you are 20 to about 23, we call this group early 20s because you are still in your 20s and you have not reached. For the next group, when you're about 24 to 26, we call this middle. We call it mid or middle 20s. We don't usually say middle, we just say mid because it's short for middle. And then for the next age group, we are talking about 27 to 29. So we call this late 20s. So when you're within this age group, we have your earlies, your mid, and your lates. All of these, it works with any number. So for example, if you are 32, what would we call you? Will you be in early 20s? Excuse me. Will you be in your early 30s, mid 30s, or late 30s? For this group, if you say that you are in your early 30s, that is correct because we take the first number. We don't care about this. When we say early 30s, we are talking about approximately, almost. So we call it early 30s. If you are 35, you will be called your mid 30s. And if you are, for example, 38, if your age group is 38 or you're around 38, we don't say 38, we call it late 30s. So this is another part of the age group right here. So we have stages when you're growing up, and then we have your stages when you grow up, and then we have your age group. Your age group, we have early, mid, and late. Early is when you are from 0 to 3. Your early, mid is when you're 4 to 6. Mid and late is 27 to 29. Right here, if you see 29, the next one, if you're 30, now we move forward into your early 30s because this number right here changed when you are 30. And we're going to continue with this one. With age group, notice on the common mistake, we say he is 30. We do not say he has 30. So we don't say that. We say he is 30 or he has 30. This one, we do not say this. This is not good. This is wrong pronunciation, wrong grammar. Or you can say he is 30. Oops, sorry, let me fix this. You say he is 30. You follow by the year, right? He is 30 years old. Once again, we do not say he has 30 years old. Age, with age, we have to use the verb to be because this is talking about being. So he is 30. We do not say he has. He is 30 years old. See, because we are using verb to be. So once again, this is a quick review of what we just talked about. For approximate ages, that means we're guessing or we're not telling them the real age. we are just saying he is around there, or he is almost, or about. So remember, early 20s, you're 21 to 23. How about 54 to 56? My parents are in their mid 50s. You see with our 50s right here? That means we take into this number right here, the big 5 right here. My grandmother is in her late 70s. You see how we have the big number as 70? That means she is 77 to 79. My grandfather is nearly or almost, is still approximately. We are just telling them close to. He is approximately 80. That means when we say approximately, that means he's closer to the big number. My English teacher's approximately or roughly 30. That means he is about 30, more or less 30. That means for this one, he is about 30. So he could be 29, 30, or 31. So that means we don't tell the age, we just tell them the number close to it. Alright, so this is this is explaining ages and stages, growing up stage and your ages. So we do have a reading. I want you to read this with me, and remember, like I always tell you, when you read something, I need you to read out loud. I don't need you to read silently. You need to hear your own voice speak, so that way you can improve your English grammar and your English pronunciation. As we read these, I will explain some of these vocabulary, and hopefully we can use some of these vocabulary better when we speak English. Alright, so everyone, please read along with me, and we'll continue to practice our English every day when we learn how to read out loud. Past and present. My grandmother's name was Mary. She's dead now. This is one word that we do not like for American English. American English, I don't know about the other one because I grew up all my life using American English. We do not say dead or died. We never say these two because these, we call it, they are not nice. They are not appropriate, not good. Not good to say these words. When we say dead or died, we refer this to animals. That's why we don't use it in American English. My dog died. My bird is dead. My chicken is dead. My cow died. So when we use it to animals, we can use, but we do not say these words when we are talking about a human or a person. This is never nice to say when we are talking about a human or a person. We do not say this. If you are going to say this, a better word would be passed away. So we say this, passed away. This is the same meaning as they died or they are dead. So remember, every single time somebody in your family died, you just say they passed away. So continue with the next part. She died about 10 years ago when I was in my teens, but I remember her well. So once again, we do not say died. For American English, she passed away about 10 years ago when I was in my teens, but I remember her well. Continuing, she was brought up. If you look at the word brought up, you see the little number 2 right here. It gives you a footnote right here. When we say brought up, look after until you are an adult. That means brought up, we say when you grow up. It means the same. You grow up or you were raised. So this means when you're brought up, that means when you were children and you as you grow older, when you're growing up, we call brought up. Continue on. She was brought up on a farm in Wales, and her parents were very strict. As a teenager, they don't allow her to listen to the radio or go to parties in the village. Strict. Strict means they are very strict. You cannot go out. They tell you you have to do this and you have to do that. You cannot do anything else. So that's what the word strict means. And the word allowed means they give you permission. So when we say allowed, I allowed you to do your homework. I give you permission to do your homework. So that's what allowed means. Continuing. In the end, finally, after a lot of time or thought, in the end, she decided to leave home and get a job in Cardiff. At first, in this reading, it means at the beginning. At first, it wasn't easy, but she managed. Managed what means able to, but it was difficult. But she managed to find work, and she also met the man who became her husband, my grandfather. My mother was born 4 years later. She had a very different childhood. She grew up in the city. She was allowed to go to parties. And when she was in her teens, her parents let her stay out late. My mom is the same with me. For this vocabulary, stay out late. It means you can go out very late with your friends. In American English, we call curfew. This is curfew is when you are not an adult, so you are 18 and under. We take you're 18 and under. You have to be home by 10 o'clock. So in American, if you're 18 and below, you have to be home by 10 o'clock. You cannot stay out past 10 o'clock. It is a law. But right here, if her parents let her stay out late, it means they give her permission to go out late. So if you have any other questions with these vocabulary, please let me know. And after this, practice reading this by yourself. Continuing with the next part, if you look at the language help, let and allowed have the same meaning. Let is slightly more information. That means you use it with friends and family. And allowed is often used in the passive. So passive means a lot of times you use it in a more formal environment. My dad let me drive his car. I was allowed to drive my dad's car. You're not allowed to smoke in that room. See, so it is more of a passive, and it is usually more of a formal use. Alright, so this is part of the lesson. So after the lesson, we will be doing some exercises. I will do some exercises with you as a class, and I will leave some of these unfinished. So for a lot of these, you will be using this as your homework. For 14.1, I will do 2 and 3 with you, and you will do the rest of this as homework. And when I do this, I will slowly explain how I came up with the answer. So, with that said, let's continue with the exercises. 14.1. Question number 2. Chan he was 22 a few months ago. So he's in his, what do you think? We're talking about age group now. We're talking about age group. So if he's 22, what age group is he? Think about this for a few seconds. Try to answer the question by yourself. And after you answer the question, please unpause the video and see if you have the same answer as me. So for question number 2, if we look at our age group, right? If he is 22, you see how he is between 20 and 23, right? So Chan-hee was 22 a few months ago. So he is in his early 20s. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Early 20s. How about the next one? Susan is 35, so she's in her, what do you guys think the answer is? If you look at 35, it's right here. So you would say she's in her mid 30s. For this one, you have to pronounce it as mid 30s, early 20s. So for 4 to 10, please do it by yourself. Submit this as part of the exercise for unit number 14, growing up. Now, let's look at this. 14.2. These are some of the questions that you'll answer about this reading right here. This one, I will let you do this one by yourself. I will answer number 2 for you, and then with the rest of this, I want you to answer this by yourself. So for question number 2, she grew up in Wales. You will find the answer to this and this reading right here. So, did Mary grow up in Wales? Alright, so this one is true, right? Answer is right here. She was brought up on a farm in Wales. So for this one, this is true. She grew up in Wales. So for 3, 4, 5, and 6, you will do this by yourself. If you have any questions, please let me know about it. I will try to answer it to you, either in email or WhatsApp. So for 14.3, rewrite the sentences without using the underlined words and phrase. Keep this means same meaning. It was hard, but finally I did it. So when we look at this word, it was hard. Finally, I did it. If you look at some of this, when you look at these vocabulary right here, see number 6, manage. She was able to do it, but it was difficult. So for this one, it was hard. But I managed to do it. How about for the next one? She's approximately my age. What can we use for another word for approximately? And going back from here, see approximately, remember, approximately, when we pronounce this, we just say approximately. It means about or almost. So for right here, she's almost, she's about my age. Alright, so for this, You will do this as part of your homework. Try to answer all of these questions, right? Remember, you are trying to change this, the word that is underlined, and you are trying to make the sentence the same. Some of these vocabulary is up here. You just have to read through these. It'll tell you some of the vocabularies right here. For this part, 14.4, this is all about you. So I want you to answer this question by yourself. Where were you brought up? Where did you grow up? What do you particularly remember about your childhood? What do you remember the most when you were a child? Were your parents strict? What weren't you allowed to do when you were a child? Did your family give you a lot of rules that you have to follow? And for this one, how late were you allowed to stay out when you were a teenager? So I want you guys to answer this by yourself as part of the homework. I will do this for myself as an example. Where were you brought up? I was brought up in the US, meaning the United States. What do you particularly remember about your childhood? From my childhood, I remember, oops, sorry, I spelled this one, going fishing with my dad every month. So when I was growing up and as a little kid, my dad and me, we would always go fishing once a month. Were your parents strict? And for me, my parents were very strict with me. I can't, I cannot go out late. I have to be home by 5:30 p.m. every day. So this is how strict my parents were. They were very strict. I have to be home by 5:30 p.m. How late were you allowed to stay out when you were a teenager? When I was a teenager, I couldn't stay out past 5:30 p.m. So this is how strict they were as I was growing up. So for this, I want you to answer this with your own question, with your own answer, and submit it. So for the homework for units number 14, growing up, you have 14.1, 14.2, 14.3, and 14.4. I want you to try to submit the answer by yourself with your own answer, and try to be as detailed as you can. With more details, you will learn English a lot better. So this is the end of the lessons for units number 14. For the next video, we'll continue with units 15. For units 15, it will be romance, marriage, and divorce. This will be another part of family. So I hope to see you in the next video, and I hope that you have a wonderful day today. And thank you for joining my class, and I hope that you will learn to use all these vocabulary and practice every day. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.